The night was quiet in Silver Ridge, Nevada. The small town was known for two things: its endless desert and its clear, star-filled skies. Jack Monroe sat on the roof of his house, adjusting the telescope he had built years ago. He loved watching the stars. His wife, Laura, brought him a cup of coffee and sat beside him. "Anything interesting tonight?" she asked, her voice soft. Jack shook his head. "Not really. Same old constellations." But as he spoke, something unusual caught his eye. A bright light streaked across the sky, moving much faster than any meteor he had ever seen. It wasn't blinking like an airplane, and it didn't follow the usual path of satellites. "Laura, look at that," Jack said, pointing toward the object. The light descended quickly, heading straight for the desert just outside town. A loud boom echoed through the air, shaking the ground beneath them. "What was that?" Laura asked, gripping Jack's arm. They both stared into the darkness, trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. Curiosity got the better of them. Jack grabbed a flashlight, and together, they drove toward the crash site. When they arrived, they found a strange metallic object embedded in the sand. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The craft shimmered faintly, as if alive, and strange symbols glowed along its surface. Jack stepped closer, his heart racing. "This isn't from Earth," he whispered. Before they could examine it further, the ship began to hum. Small canisters started ejecting from its sides, rolling across the ground. One of them cracked open near Jack, releasing a purple mist that swirled around him. Laura shouted, pulling him back. "Are you okay? What is that stuff?" Jack coughed but felt no pain. In fact, he felt better. His headache from earlier was gone, and he noticed his vision seemed sharper. "I think I'm fine," he said, brushing himself off. "Maybe it's harmless." Word of the alien craft spread quickly. By morning, federal agents had cordoned off the area. Agent Ryan Carter, a serious man with sharp eyes, led the investigation. He questioned Jack and Laura about what they had seen. "Did you touch anything?" he asked, his tone firm, but not unkind. "Just the mist," Jack admitted. "But honestly, I feel great. Better than I have in years." Ryan frowned. He turned to Dr. Emily Dawson, a scientist who had been called in to analyze the mysterious substance. She knelt by one of the cracked canisters, carefully collecting samples. Her brow furrowed as she examined the glowing liquid under a microscope. "It's organic," she muttered, "but it doesn't match anything in our databases." As the day went on, more townspeople gathered at the edge of the restricted zone, whispering among themselves. Some were scared, convinced the aliens had come to harm them. Others were curious, even excited. Joe Parker, a local chef known for his bold experiments in the kitchen, picked up a piece of the purple mist that had settled on a rock. "Smells sweet," he said, sniffing it cautiously. Without thinking, he dabbed a bit on his finger and tasted it. His eyes widened. "Wow, this is incredible." By evening, rumors were flying. The alien poison wasn't deadly. It made people feel amazing. Word reached Joe's diner, where customers begged him to try adding the mist to his food. Reluctantly, he agreed, sprinkling a tiny amount onto a plate of fries. The reaction was immediate. Customers raved about the flavor, saying it was unlike anything they'd ever tasted. Social media lit up with posts about the discovery, drawing attention from all over the world. Meanwhile, inside the alien ship, the beings responsible for the arrival watched silently. They hadn't expected this turn of events. Their plan, to eliminate humanity with a deadly toxin, had failed spectacularly. Now, they wondered, what would these strange, unpredictable humans do next? The next morning, Silver Ridge was buzzing with excitement. News about the alien craft and the strange purple mist had spread like wildfire. Joe Parker's diner became the center of attention as people lined up to try his fries seasoned with the mysterious substance. "It's not just food," one customer said, wiping tears from their eyes. "It's like happiness on a plate." Dr. Emily Dawson worked tirelessly in her makeshift lab near the crash site. She ran test after test on the glowing liquid, trying to understand what it was. At first, she thought it might be dangerous, but the results kept surprising her. The substance didn't harm cells. It improved them. People exposed to it showed increased energy, stronger immune systems, and even signs of slowed aging. "This isn't poison," she told Agent Ryan Carter during a quick briefing. "It's something else entirely." Ryan nodded, though he still looked uneasy. He had spent years dealing with crises, but nothing like this. The aliens hadn't attacked anyone yet, but their intentions were unclear. Were they testing humanity? Or was this some kind of twisted experiment? Either way, Ryan knew tensions could escalate quickly if people started panicking. Back at the diner, Joe Parker couldn't keep up with demand. Customers begged him for more of the flavored fries, but he was running low on the purple mist. Some townsfolk began collecting samples themselves, sneaking past the federal agents guarding the crash site. Laura Monroe noticed this and warned Jack not to get involved. "You don't know what that stuff could do in large amounts," she said. But Jack shrugged. "So far, it seems harmless. Maybe it's a gift." Not everyone shared Jack's optimism. Pastor Greg Thompson stood on the steps of his church, shouting warnings to anyone who would listen. "This is unnatural," he declared, pointing toward the desert. "They're trying to corrupt us, to make us dependent on their poison." A small group of followers gathered around him, nodding in agreement. They believed the aliens were evil and needed to be driven away before it was too late. Despite the growing divide, most people were fascinated by the aliens' arrival. Social media erupted with hashtags like #AlienFlavor and #ZilixSpice, a name someone online had given to the glowing substance. Videos of Joe's fries went viral, and soon, reporters from major news networks arrived in Silver Ridge. They interviewed locals, asking questions about the mysterious mist and whether it could change the world. Agent Ryan Carter tried to maintain order, but it wasn't easy. Federal agents struggled to keep curious onlookers away from the alien ship. One night, a teenager named Mia Johnson snuck close enough to touch the craft. When she returned home, her parents noticed her skin glowing faintly under the bathroom light. Terrified, they called Dr. Dawson, who rushed over to examine her. To everyone's relief, Maya seemed perfectly healthy and oddly cheerful. "I feel amazing," she said, grinning. As days passed, the aliens remained silent inside their ship. No one knew why they hadn't made contact yet. Some speculated they were observing humanity, while others thought they might be planning an attack. Dr. Dawson suggested sending a message to show goodwill. "If we can prove we mean no harm, maybe they'll talk to us," she said. Jack Monroe decided to take matters into his own hands. Using his telescope, he aimed a bright spotlight at the ship and flashed it in patterns resembling Morse code. "Hello," he spelled out. "We come in peace." Laura rolled her eyes. "You've been watching too many movies," she teased. But deep down, she hoped someone, or something, was listening. Finally, on the 5th day, the aliens responded. A section of the ship slid open, revealing towering figures with translucent skin that shimmered in the sunlight. Their eyes glowed softly, and intricate patterns pulsed across their bodies. Everyone froze, unsure what to expect. Then, one of the aliens stepped forward. It projected a holographic image above its head, a map of Earth surrounded by symbols no one could decipher. Agent Ryan Carter approached cautiously, holding up his hands to signal peace. "We don't want to hurt you," he said, though he doubted they understood English. The alien tilted its head, studying him. Then it spoke, not with words, but through a series of musical tones that resonated in the air. Though no one knew what it meant, the tone felt calm, almost curious. For the first time since the aliens' arrival, hope began to replace fear. Whatever their original plan had been, it seemed humanity's response had thrown them off guard. Instead of dying, people wanted more. And instead of running, The aliens were starting to wonder if humans might be worth getting to know. The alien stood tall and still, its glowing patterns shifting like waves on water. Agent Ryan Carter took another cautious step forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. Behind him, a small crowd had gathered, whispering nervously. Jack and Laura Monroe watched from a distance, their hearts pounding with anticipation. This was it, the moment humanity would finally speak to an alien species. The alien tilted its head again, studying Ryan. Its musical tones filled the air once more, soft and melodic, but impossible to understand. Dr. Emily Dawson stepped forward, holding up a tablet displaying images of Earth's plants, animals, and people. "We're trying to communicate," she said slowly, pointing at the pictures. The alien paused, then responded by projecting a hologram of its own, a swirling galaxy with one planet highlighted. It tapped its chest and emitted a single tone that vibrated through the ground. "They're introducing themselves," Emily guessed aloud. She pointed to herself and said, "Human." Then she gestured to the alien and waited. After a moment, the alien repeated the gesture, touching its chest and emitting a different tone. Emily smiled. "That's progress." Agent Ryan Carter glanced at the growing crowd. People were getting restless, snapping photos and filming videos on their phones. He signaled for federal agents to keep everyone back, knowing how easily things could spiral out of control. Pastor Greg Thompson stood nearby, shaking his head. "They're tricking us," he shouted. "Don't trust them." Ignoring the commotion, Emily focused on the alien. Using simple hand gestures and drawings, she tried to explain why humans were so interested in the purple mist. She sketched a stick figure eating food and added a smiley face next to it. The alien seemed confused at first, but when Joe Parker stepped forward holding a plate of fries dusted with Zillick spice, something clicked. The alien leaned closer, studying the dish intently. Joe hesitated, then offered the plate to the alien. For a moment, no one moved. The alien extended a long, slender arm and touched the fry. Its glowing patterns brightened as it brought the fry to its mouth, or what looked like a mouth, and tasted it. A series of rapid tones followed, almost like laughter. Then the alien turned to its companions and projected a new hologram, a recipe written in symbols. "They're showing us how to make it," Emily exclaimed, her voice full of excitement. But before anyone could react, the alien's demeanor changed. It straightened up, its glowing patterns turning a deep red. Another hologram appeared, a massive explosion destroying Earth. The musical tones grew sharp and urgent. "What does that mean?" Ryan asked, his voice tense. Emily frowned. "I think they're warning us. Maybe they came here to destroy us, but now they're reconsidering." The alien spoke again, this time projecting an image of the purple mist spreading across Earth, covering cities and fields. People fell to the ground, writhing in pain. It was horrifying. But then the scene shifted. Instead of dying, the humans began standing up, healthier and stronger than before. The alien pointed to the crowd, then back to itself, as if asking, "Why aren't you dead?" Laura Monroe stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Maybe we're not what you expected," she said softly, though she knew the alien couldn't understand her words. She held out her hands, palms open, and smiled warmly. The alien studied her for a long moment, its glowing patterns returning to their calm, pulsing rhythm. Agent Ryan Carter decided to take a risk. He pointed to the alien, then to himself, and mind shaking hands. The alien hesitated, then extended its hand, or whatever passed for a hand, and gently touched Ryan's fingers. A ripple of light passed between them, and Ryan felt a strange warmth spread through his body. It wasn't painful, it was comforting, like being wrapped in sunlight. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Ryan quickly raised his hand to silence them. He turned back to the alien and pointed to the ship, then to the town. "Can we talk more?" he asked, hoping the gesture would convey his meaning. The alien nodded slowly and motioned for them to follow. As they walked toward the ship, Emily whispered to Ryan, "This changes everything. If we can learn from them, imagine what we could achieve." Ryan didn't respond. His mind was racing with possibilities and dangers. Trusting these aliens wouldn't be easy, but one thing was clear: humanity's hunger for knowledge and flavor had already begun to bridge the gap between two very different worlds. Inside the alien ship, the air felt different, lighter, almost electric. Agent Ryan Carter and Dr. Emily Dawson followed the tall alien, whose glowing patterns shifted with every step. The walls of the ship shimmered like liquid metal, and strange symbols floated in the air around them. Jack and Laura Monroe stayed outside with the crowd, but Joe Parker had insisted on coming along. "This is about food," he whispered to Ryan. "I need to see this." The alien led them to a large chamber filled with floating holograms. Each one displayed images of planets, plants, and creatures unfamiliar to Earth. In the center of the room, a circular table projected a map of Earth surrounded by swirling colors. The alien gestured for them to sit, or at least, that's what it seemed like. Ryan hesitated before lowering himself onto what looked like a bench made of light. It was surprisingly solid. The alien began speaking again, its musical tones filling the room. This time, the sounds were accompanied by new holograms, showing the purple mist being released into Earth's atmosphere. People collapsed in agony, but only for a moment. Then, they stood up stronger, healthier, and happier. The alien pointed to the humans in the hologram, and then to Ryan and Emily, as if asking, "Why are you different?" Emily leaned forward, trying to explain. She drew a simple diagram on her tablet, a human body with arrows pointing to various organs. "We adapt," she said slowly, tapping the image. "Humans are resilient. Maybe your spice works differently on us." The alien tilted its head, considering her words. Joe Parker couldn't stay quiet any longer. He pulled out a small container of fries from his pocket, the last bits of Zillick spice he'd saved, and held them up. "This tastes amazing," he said, taking a bite to demonstrate. "People love it. We're not scared of it. We want more." The alien stared at him, its glowing patterns flickering rapidly. It reached out and touched the fry, then mimicked Joe's gesture by tasting it carefully. For a moment, there was silence. Then the alien emitted a series of soft tones that sounded almost amused. It turned to the others and projected a new hologram, a recipe written in glowing symbols. Emily's eyes widened. "It's showing us how to make it," she exclaimed. Ryan frowned. "Are they giving it to us freely? Or is this a trap?" Before anyone could answer, the alien added another hologram, a warning. It showed Earth covered in too much of the purple mist, choking cities and fields. Plants wilted, animals fled, and people coughed violently. The message was clear. Too much of a good thing could be dangerous. "We understand," Emily said quickly, holding up her hands. "Balance. We'll use it responsibly." She glanced at Ryan, who nodded in agreement. The alien studied them for a long moment before stepping back. Its glowing patterns softened, shifting to a calming blue. Then, it pointed to itself and said a single tone, repeating it several times. "That must be its name," Emily guessed. "Or maybe its title. Let's call it Zillar for now." Zillar gestured toward the recipe hologram, and then to Earth, as if handing over responsibility. But the alien didn't stop there. It added one final image, two figures shaking hands, surrounded by stars. The message was unmistakable. They wanted peace. As they left the ship, Ryan felt a mix of relief and unease. "This could change everything," he muttered to Emily. "If we can grow this stuff ourselves, imagine the possibilities." Emily nodded, already thinking about how to share the discovery safely. Outside, the crowd erupted when they saw the group emerge. "What did they say?" someone shouted. Joe raised his hands triumphantly. "They gave us the recipe." Cheers broke out, and cameras flashed wildly. Pastor Greg Thompson scowled from the sidelines, muttering about deception, but no one paid him much attention. Back at the diner, Joe immediately started experimenting with the new instructions. He mixed ingredients carefully, following the alien symbols as best he could. When the first batch was ready, he sprinkled it onto a plate of chicken wings and handed them to Laura. "Try this," he said, grinning. She took a bite, and her eyes lit up. "This is incredible," she said. "Better than before." Word spread quickly. By evening, Silver Ridge was buzzing with excitement. People talked about the aliens not as invaders, but as partners. For the first time, humanity's curiosity and hunger for flavor had opened a door to understanding. And somewhere inside the alien ship, Zyler watched silently, wondering if these strange, unpredictable humans might just deserve a second chance. The days that followed were a whirlwind of excitement and chaos in Silver Ridge. News of the alien recipe spread far beyond the small desert town, drawing attention from all corners of the globe. Reporters camped out near the diner, eager to interview Joe Parker about his experiments with Zillick spice. Scientists arrived in droves, hoping to study the substance and its effects on humans. Even chefs from fancy restaurants flew in, desperate to get a taste of the mysterious ingredient. Joe's diner became the heart of the frenzy. Every day, long lines stretched down the street as people waited for hours just to try one dish seasoned with Zillick spice. "It's not just food," a customer said after biting into a Zillick-infused burger. "It's like happiness in your mouth." Others claimed it made them feel younger, stronger, or more energetic. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #FlavorOffTheFuture and #AlienAtes. But not everyone was happy about the sudden fame. Pastor Greg Thompson grew angrier by the day. He stood outside the diner every morning, holding a sign that read, "God did not create this." His followers joined him, shouting warnings to anyone who passed by. "This is unnatural," he bellowed. "They're poisoning your souls." Some townsfolk ignored him, but others began to listen, especially when rumors started spreading about strange side effects. Dr. Emily Dawson noticed the whispers first. People reported vivid dreams after eating Zillick spice, while others claimed they could hear faint musical tones in their heads. A few even swore they saw glowing patterns under their skin at night. Though none of these symptoms seemed harmful, Emily knew better than to dismiss them. She set up a makeshift clinic to monitor anyone showing unusual reactions. "We don't know enough yet," she told Agent Ryan Carter. "If we're not careful, this could spiral out of control." Ryan agreed, but keeping order was becoming harder. Protesters gathered outside the crash site, demanding the aliens leave Earth immediately. Federal agents struggled to keep them away from the ship, where Ziller and its companions remained silent observers. Laura Monroe tried to bridge the gap between the two sides. She visited the protesters, speaking calmly and sharing her own experiences with the aliens. "They didn't hurt us," she said. "They gave us something beautiful. Why are we so quick to fear?" Her words resonated with some, but others only grew more distrustful. One night, tensions boiled over. A group of masked men snuck past the guards and broke into the containment facility where samples of Zillick spice were stored. They destroyed everything they could find, smashing equipment and scattering notes. By the time federal agents arrived, the building was engulfed in flames. The arson shocked the town. Jack Monroe rushed to the scene, using his telescope to scan the area for clues. He spotted tire tracks leading away from the facility and alerted Ryan, who launched an investigation. Meanwhile, Joe Parker worked tirelessly to salvage what he could of his remaining spice supply. Without it, his diner would have to close, and the thought of losing something so special devastated him. Laura stepped forward to help calm the community. She organized a meeting at the local school, inviting everyone to share their fears and hopes. "We can't let fear divide us," she said. "This spice has brought us together, not torn us apart. Let's focus on understanding it, not destroying it." Her speech went viral online, inspiring people around the world to support peaceful cooperation with the aliens. Donations poured in to help rebuild the facility, and volunteers offered their time to assist Dr. Dawson's research. Even some of Pastor Thompson's followers began to soften their stance, curious about the potential benefits of Zillick spice. Inside the alien ship, Zyler watched the humans closely. The sabotage had been unexpected, but so had the resilience and unity shown in its aftermath. For the first time, Zyler considered that perhaps humanity wasn't as dangerous as its species had assumed. Maybe, just maybe, these strange beings were worth getting to know. As the sun rose over Silver Ridge, hope began to outweigh fear. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, humans and aliens were working toward the same goal, understanding each other through something as simple and powerful as flavor. The rebuilding efforts in Silver Ridge brought people together in unexpected ways. Volunteers worked side by side to repair the containment facility, sharing stories and laughter as they hammered nails and carried supplies. Joe Parker reopened his diner temporarily, serving free meals to anyone helping with the cleanup. "This town has been through enough," he said, flipping burgers on the grill. "We're not letting fear win." Dr. Emily Dawson spent long hours in the rebuild lab, analyzing every scrap of data she could salvage from the fire. With help from scientists around the world, she pieced together fragments of the alien recipe. But something about the substance still puzzled her. It didn't behave like a normal chemical. It seemed almost alive. One night, while examining a sample under a microscope, she noticed tiny particles moving rhythmically, like heartbeats. She gasped. "It's not just organic," she whispered to herself. "It's part of them." Her discovery shook her. The purple mist wasn't just a product made by the aliens. It came from their bodies. Somehow, during moments of intense emotion, the aliens secreted this glowing substance. Happiness, excitement, even curiosity. All these feelings triggered its release. Emily realized that when humans tasted Zillick spice, they weren't just experiencing flavor. They were tasting the essence of the aliens' emotions. She shared her findings with Agent Ryan Carter, who listened quietly. "So it's personal for them," he said, rubbing his chin. "If we take too much or use it carelessly, we're basically stealing pieces of who they are." Emily nodded. "Exactly. We need to approach this carefully, or risk losing their trust forever." Meanwhile, Zylar watched humanity's progress from inside the ship. The alien leader had seen how quickly humans adapted, how eager they were to learn and grow. Yet Zylar also saw the darker side. The greed, the fear, the violence. The sabotage at the facility had been a reminder that not all humans could be trusted. Still, Zylar couldn't ignore the kindness shown by people like Laura Monroe and Jack, or the determination of Dr. Dawson to understand rather than exploit. One evening, Zylar invited Ryan and Emily back into the ship. The glowing patterns on its skin shifted nervously as it projected holograms showing images of its species harvesting the spice naturally. The process looked peaceful, almost sacred. Then, another hologram appeared, a factory churning out endless amounts of the substance, polluting the environment and harming the aliens. Zylar pointed to Earth and shook its head firmly. "They're warning us," Emily said softly. "If we mass-produce this stuff, it could hurt them. And maybe us too." Ryan frowned. "So what do they want us to do? Stop using it altogether?" Zylar paused, then showed a new hologram. Humans and aliens working together in harmony, cultivating the spice sustainably. The image was hopeful, but also challenging. Zylar wanted cooperation, not domination. Back in town, Joe Parker faced a dilemma. Demand for Zillick spice was skyrocketing, and investors offered him huge sums of money to commercialize the recipe. "Think about it, Joe," one businessman urged. "You could make millions." But Joe hesitated. He thought about the aliens, about Zylar's warnings, and about the dreams he'd been having since tasting the spice. Dreams filled with glowing patterns and soothing music. Something deep inside told him this wasn't just about profit. He decided to talk to Ziller directly. With Ryan and Emily's help, he arranged a meeting near the ship. When Ziller emerged, Joe stepped forward nervously. "I want to say thank you," he began. "Your spice has changed my life, changed everyone's lives. But I don't want to take advantage of you. If you'll teach us, I promise we'll respect your rules." Ziller studied him closely, its glowing patterns shifting slowly. Then it reached out and touched Joe's hand, sending a warm pulse through his body. For a moment, Joe felt overwhelming calm, as if Ziller understood his sincerity. The alien nodded and turned back toward the ship, signaling for them to follow. Inside, Ziller demonstrated how to cultivate the spice ethically, using sustainable methods that honored its origins. Emily took detailed notes, while Ryan filmed everything discreetly. Joe watched in awe, realizing this was more than just cooking. It was art, science, and culture combined. As they left the ship, Joe felt a renewed sense of purpose. "We can do this right," he told Ryan and Emily. "Not just for us, but for them too." They agreed, knowing the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time, humans and aliens were no longer strangers. They were partners, united by a shared love of discovery and flavor. The partnership between humans and aliens began to take shape in unexpected ways. Ziller and its companions stayed in Silver Ridge, working closely with Dr. Emily Dawson and Joe Parker to teach them how to grow Zillic spice sustainably. They set up a small farm on the outskirts of town, using alien technology combined with Earth's natural resources. The glowing plants thrived under careful supervision, producing just enough spice to meet local demand without overharvesting. At first, people were skeptical about the new farming methods. "Why can't we just make more?" some asked, frustrated by the limited supply. But Laura Monroe stepped in to explain. She held meetings at the community center, showing videos of Ziller's demonstrations and sharing stories about the aliens' culture. "This isn't just food," she said gently. "It's part of who they are. If we take too much, we're hurting them and ourselves." Her words resonated with many, especially after Pastor Greg Thompson's followers dwindled. Even he had started to soften his stance, though he still muttered about caution whenever someone mentioned the aliens. Over time, the townsfolk grew to appreciate the balance Ziller had taught them. Farmers learned to nurture the glowing plants alongside traditional crops, creating a unique blend of human and alien agriculture. Joe Parker became the face of this collaboration. He experimented tirelessly in his diner, combining Zillic spice with local ingredients to create dishes that honored both worlds. His signature dish, a fusion of roasted vegetables, herbs, and a sprinkle of the glowing spice, became a symbol of unity. People traveled from all over the country just to taste it, marveling at how it seemed to bring out the best flavors in every bite. As word spread, invitations poured in for Joe to showcase his cooking at an international summit celebrating interstellar diplomacy. The event would bring together world leaders, scientists, and even representatives from Ziller's species. It was a chance to prove that humanity could cooperate peacefully with extraterrestrial life. Agent Ryan Carter worked hard to ensure security for the summit. He knew tensions still lingered, especially among those who distrusted the aliens or feared their intentions. Protesters gathered outside the venue, holding signs that read, "No alien influence," and "Protect our planet." But inside, the atmosphere was hopeful. Tables were decorated with glowing flowers grown from the same technology used to cultivate Zillic spice, casting soft light across the room. When the day arrived, Joe stood nervously behind a long buffet table, arranging plates of his signature dish. Next to him, Ziller waited patiently, its glowing patterns shifting calmly. As guests arrived, they marveled at the sight of the tall alien standing beside the humble chef. Conversations buzzed around them, blending languages and cultures in a celebration of diversity. Finally, it was time to serve. Joe handed the first plate to a famous diplomat, who took a hesitant bite and then smiled widely. "This is incredible," she said, turning to Ziller. "Thank you." Others followed, tasting the dish and nodding in agreement. For a moment, the room fell silent as everyone savored the flavors, feeling a strange connection to something greater than themselves. Ziller stepped forward, projecting holograms above the crowd. Images of stars, planets, and glowing plants danced in the air, accompanied by musical tones that resonated deeply. Then Ziller spoke, not in words, but through emotions conveyed through the music. Everyone felt it: curiosity, hope, and a shared desire for understanding. Laura Monroe translated aloud, her voice steady. "They came here thinking we were dangerous. But now, they see our potential for growth, for change, for peace." When the meal ended, applause filled the room. World leaders shook hands with Zillar, promising to support sustainable practices and ethical use of Zillic spice. Joe beamed with pride, knowing his little diner had sparked something extraordinary. That night, as fireworks lit up the sky, Jack Monroe looked at his wife and smiled. "We did it," he said softly. "We turned poison into partnership." Laura nodded, her eyes shining. In that moment, humanity and aliens weren't so different after all. They were united by a love of discovery, flavor, and the hope of a brighter future. The success of the International Summit brought a wave of optimism to Silver Ridge, but not everyone was ready to embrace the new partnership. Pastor Greg Thompson and his remaining followers refused to let go of their suspicions. "They're manipulating us," he declared during a sermon. "That spice is changing us. It's not natural." His words struck a chord with some who still felt uneasy about relying on something created by aliens. Tensions simmered beneath the surface until one night, disaster struck. Someone sabotaged the farm where Zillic spice was being cultivated. The glowing plants were destroyed, their delicate roots torn from the soil. Cameras caught glimpses of shadowy figures fleeing the scene, but no one could identify them. When Joe Parker arrived at the farm the next morning, he stared in shock at the ruined crops. "Who would do this?" he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Agent Ryan Carter launched an immediate investigation. He reviewed security footage and noticed a logo on one of the intruders' jackets, a symbol linked to a powerful corporation known for exploiting resources without regard for consequences. This wasn't random vandalism, Ryan told Emily Dawson as they examined the evidence. "Someone wants control over the spice, and they'll stop at nothing to get it." News of the attack spread quickly, reigniting fears among the townsfolk. Some called for increased protection for Ziller and its companions, while others demanded that the aliens leave Earth altogether. Laura Monroe stepped forward to address the growing panic. She stood on the steps of the community center, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Fear won't solve this," she said firmly. "We've come too far to let anger divide us. We need to stand together, not just for ourselves, but for the trust we've built with Zillar." Her words calmed many, but Pastor Thompson continued to stir dissent. He led protests outside the diner, accusing Joe of colluding with the aliens to profit off humanity's dependence on Zillic spice. "They're poisoning our minds," he shouted, pointing at the glowing remnants of the damaged plants. "Wake up before it's too late." Inside the alien ship, Zyler watched the unrest unfold with growing concern. The alien leader had hoped for peace, but now it questioned whether humanity could truly be trusted. Its glowing patterns shifted nervously as it debated withdrawing its species entirely. Jack Monroe noticed Ziller's hesitation during one of their meetings and approached cautiously. "You can't give up on us," he said softly. "We're trying. Not everyone here thinks like Pastor Thompson." Zillar tilted its head, studying Jack closely. Then it projected a hologram of Earth surrounded by stars, followed by an image of humans and aliens working side by side. The message was clear: unity was possible, but fragile. Jack nodded, understanding the weight of the decision facing Zyler. Meanwhile, Ryan Carter uncovered crucial evidence tying the sabotage to a shadowy CEO named Victor Lang, whose corporation had been secretly funding anti-alien groups. With help from Jack, who used his telescope to track unusual activity near the farm, Ryan gathered enough proof to expose Lang's involvement. The news broke worldwide, turning public opinion against the corporation and its greed. As the dust settled, people began repairing the damage. Volunteers replanted the glowing crops, determined to restore what had been lost. Joe Parker reopened his diner, offering free meals to anyone helping with the recovery effort. "This isn't just about food anymore," he told the crowd. "It's about showing the aliens, and ourselves, that we're better than fear and greed." Slowly, trust began to rebuild. Zeller emerged from the ship, its glowing pattern softening as it observed the renewed determination of the townsfolk. Humanity's flaws were undeniable, but so was its resilience. For the first time, Zeller allowed itself to believe that perhaps these strange beings were worth staying for. Weeks passed, and Silver Ridge began to heal. The glowing crops at the farm grew back stronger than ever, nurtured by the combined efforts of humans and aliens. People worked side by side, learning from Zoller's species how to care for the delicate plants. Farmers shared stories with the aliens, teaching them about Earth's seasons and traditions, while Zeller introduced them to its own culture through holograms and musical tones. The bond between the two groups deepened every day. Joe Parker's diner became a symbol of this unity. Customers from all walks of life gathered there, sharing meals infused with Zillick spice. Strangers struck up conversations, finding common ground over plates of Joe's famous fusion dishes. Even Pastor Greg Thompson stopped by one evening, though he remained quiet in the corner, sipping coffee. When Laura Monroe noticed him, she sat down across the table. "You're welcome here," she said gently, "even if you don't agree with us." Thompson hesitated before speaking. "I still have doubts," he admitted, "but I see how hard everyone is working to make this work. Maybe I was wrong about some things." Laura smiled, sensing a shift in his perspective. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a start. Agent Ryan Carter kept a close eye on Victor Lang's corporation, ensuring they couldn't interfere again. The exposure had ruined their reputation, and protests erupted outside their headquarters worldwide. Governments passed new laws protecting interstellar cooperation, making it clear that exploitation of alien resources would not be tolerated. For the first time, humanity seemed ready to take responsibility for its actions. Dr. Emily Dawson continued her research, studying the effects of Zillick spice on human health and emotions. She discovered something remarkable. The substance didn't just enhance flavor or improve physical well-being. It fostered empathy. People who consumed it reported feeling more connected to others, more willing to listen and understand. "It's like tasting their emotions," Emily explained to Jack Monroe during one of their late-night discussions. "Maybe that's why Zeller uses it, to share joy." Jack nodded thoughtfully. He had noticed the change in himself, too. Since working closely with the aliens, he felt more patient, more open-minded. Even Laura joked that he'd become less stubborn. "Guess we're all learning something," she teased, earning a chuckle from him. As the weeks turned into months, Silver Ridge transformed into a hub of interstellar collaboration. Scientists visited to study the sustainable farming methods, chefs came to learn Joe's recipes, and artists drew inspiration from the glowing patterns of Ziller's species. The town buzzed with creativity and innovation, fueled by the unique partnership between humans and aliens. One evening, Zeller called a meeting near the ship. The alien leader projected a hologram showing images of Earth alongside its home planet, a distant world filled with shimmering landscapes and towering structures. Then, it showed an image of humans and aliens standing together under a shared sky. Zeller turned to Ryan Carter, Emily Dawson, and the Monroes, its glowing patterns pulsing warmly. "We've decided to stay," Emily translated aloud, interpreting Zeller's musical tones. "They believe in us, in our ability to grow and adapt. They want to help us build a better future." The announcement brought tears to Laura's eyes. She stepped forward and hugged Zeller awkwardly, earning surprised laughter from the crowd. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting us." That night, The town celebrated with a feast under the stars. Tables stretched across the desert, laden with food seasoned with Zillick spice. Music played softly in the background, blending human melodies with the alien tones emitted by Ziller and its companions. People danced, laughed, and shared stories, united by a newfound sense of hope. As Jack looked around at the glowing faces of his neighbors and the shimmering forms of the aliens, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was trying. And sometimes that was enough. Months turned into a year, and Silver Ridge thrived like never before. The town had become a beacon of hope, drawing visitors from all over the world eager to witness the unique partnership between humans and aliens. Farmers learned to grow Zillick spice sustainably, blending traditional techniques with alien technology. Chefs experimented with new recipes, creating dishes that celebrated both Earth's flavors and the glowing essence of Ziller's species. Joe Parker's diner remained the heart of the community. He no longer served just food. He served connection. Every meal was an opportunity to bring people together, whether they were locals or tourists, scientists or artists. Even Pastor Greg Thompson became a regular, though he still teased Joe about charging too much for fries. "Guess I can't argue with results," he admitted one day, patting his stomach after finishing a plate. "This stuff really is life-changing." Agent Ryan Carter retired early, trading his badge for an apron. He opened a small cafe near the farm, where he served coffee infused with a hint of Zillick spice. Customers loved the warm, comforting flavor, saying it made them feel calm and focused. Ryan often sat outside in the evenings, watching the stars with Jack Monroe. "Never thought I'd end up here," Ryan said one night, sipping his drink, "but I wouldn't trade it for anything." Jack nodded, adjusting his telescope. "Funny how things work out. We started with fear, but look at us now." Laura joined them, carrying a tray of cookies flavored with the spice. "It's not perfect," she said, handing them each a cookie, "but we're trying. And that's what matters." Dr. Emily Dawson continued her research, publishing papers that changed the way humanity viewed cooperation with extraterrestrial life. Her studies showed that Zillick spice wasn't just a product, it was a bridge, fostering empathy and understanding between species. Governments around the world adopted her findings, establishing guidelines to ensure ethical use of alien resources. Emily often visited schools, teaching children about sustainability and the importance of respecting other cultures, human or otherwise. Ziller stayed on Earth as an ambassador, marveling at humanity's capacity for growth. The alien leader spent hours observing humans, fascinated by their creativity and resilience. It participated in local festivals, projecting holographic art shows that left audiences awestruck. When asked why it chose to remain, Ziller projected a simple image: two hands shaking under a shared sky. "We underestimated you," Emily translated during one interview, "but now we see your potential." The glowing crops flourished under careful care, producing enough Zillick spice to meet global demand without harming the environment. Farmers shared their knowledge freely, spreading sustainable practices worldwide. Even Victor Lang's corporation, humbled by its past mistakes, invested in eco-friendly initiatives, earning tentative forgiveness from the public. As the seasons changed, so did the town. New families moved to Silver Ridge, drawn by its spirit of unity and innovation. Artists painted murals depicting humans and aliens working side by side, while musicians composed songs inspired by Ziller's melodic tones. The once sleepy desert town had transformed into a vibrant hub of culture and progress. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Jack and Laura climbed onto their roof with cups of Ryan-spiced coffee. They gazed at the stars, reflecting on everything that had happened. "Remember when we thought aliens were here to destroy us?" Jack asked, chuckling softly. Laura smiled, leaning against him. "And all they wanted was to understand us, as much as we wanted to understand them." Far below, Ziller stood quietly in the glowing fields, watching the humans laugh and dream beneath the vast, star-filled sky. Its patterns shimmered softly, pulsing with contentment. For the first time, it felt certain that humanity's future, and its own, was brighter because of the bond they had forged. In the end, the aliens may have tried poisoning humans, but all humans wanted was the recipe. And through that shared love of flavor, two very different species found a way to build something beautiful together.